Resolve improves the time it takes to remediate an issue 4 or 5 times.
So we have 2 offices, one in San Francisco and one in New York, right?
Correct. And I think by the end of this year, it's probably going to be 100% of the source code is going to be generated for many organizations, including ourselves.
So you just closed at 125 million Series A at 1 billion valuation.
By the end of this year, Resolve should be able to actually, deal on its own without even a human in the loop with the majority of issues.
That's not a small improvement, that's transformational. All right, we are live and we are here at the Resolve AI office. I'm Arthur, founder of Silicon Valley Investclub. We cover private tech market. And today I'm sitting down with a very special guest, Spiros Xanthos, founder and CEO of Resolve AI, a company that just hit unicorn status and fundamentally changing how software runs in production. Spiros, thank you so much for having me here.
Thanks for inviting me. I'm glad to be here.
Before we dive into the company, you've done this before, 2 exits, VMware, Splunk, co-created OpenTelemetry. At what point did you say, okay, I need to go to build something again?
It happens to me every time after I'm away from a startup for a year or two. Because I think, startups are very, very hard. And startups in AI are even harder, I would say, right? The level of intensity and the pace is, like nothing I've seen before, right? Even though I'm a 4-time founder. But at the same time, when you're solving hard problems, working with people that care deeply about what they're doing, right? You feel like maybe you're having an impact to your users or customers. I think, nothing beats that, right? So the comfort maybe of a big job or an easier job, let's say at a large organization, for me at least, does not compare to a startup, despite all the hard work. Now the truth is, every time I had an exit, I said, I'm done. This was my final one. But because it is very, very hard, right? And getting to an outcome also is very difficult. But then, after a year or two, I realized that, that's what I love doing, and that's why I'm back to it this time again.
I really understand you. There is a stat that really stuck with me. Engineers spending up to 80% of their time not to build new things, but just keeping their lights on, running, maintaining, firefighting. That's the majority of their work in life. How does Resolve actually change that equation?
Yes. And this goes back to why I started this company also, right? Like my own experience and my co-founder and I, what we saw was that obviously the world runs on software at this point, right? And, like engineers spend the vast majority of the time actually, not like building new things at scale, but maintaining and improving what we have, right? And that's very, very important because obviously we need to deliver software reliably. And, our thesis, a bit more than 2 years ago, and the reason we got excited to work on Resolve was that in this new world, we probably have the ability and the need to rethink how we do this. And so that's where the idea for Resolve came about, right? Like in my last job at Splunk, we measured that like 70 to 80% of our time was spent not actually building, but dealing with what we had and maintaining, improving, debugging. So we decided that if, let's say, models keep improving at the same pace, what we saw 2 years ago, maybe we can rethink how we run software systems, not just how we build them, but how we run them, right? And we decided to focus on this idea of building AI agents now that essentially do the work of software engineers, but not in the building, but in the running part, right? And this is, in my opinion, both essential for us to be able to move at a higher velocity with AI, but also it is important for the people involved in this, right? The software engineers. The writing part is creative and it's nice and it's interesting, right? But the maintaining, improving, and especially responding to issues, it's very, very stressful and difficult, right? So it's great to have AI that does the creative part, but more important to have the AI that does the stressful and difficult work, right? And that's what Resolve is all about, at least when it comes to software engineers.
Right, thanks. Walk me through what Resolve actually does. It's 2 a.m., something goes down at Coinbase. Your AI is on call. What happens next, step by step?
Yeah. So the way Resolve works is that, like a software engineer, it has the ability to use all the tools you have in a production system. So it will connect to your source code, it will connect to your infrastructure, let's say AWS, it will connect to your observability tools, maybe you have Grafana, maybe you have Datadog, maybe you have Splunk. So to your scenario, when something goes wrong at 2 a.m., typically we have either a customer complaining or maybe an alert firing, automatically detecting a problem. At that point, usually the way it works today is like a human gets paid, they have to connect, they have, in a very, very timely manner, figure out what's going on to prevent an outage. Oftentimes that results in actually many, many people showing up or connecting, like in the middle of the night, getting paid to wake up to figure out what's going on, right? Because also in these complex systems, it's very hard for any individual to know what's going on. So what Resolve does now, instead of like this very stressful, laborious effort in the middle of the night, Resolve will pick that, let's say, problem up. It will actually use all the tools it has available. It uses all the knowledge and context it has about the system. It will read source code if needed, and will try to figure out what the problem is, where it comes from, essentially what we call the root cause, and how to remediate it. And that probably saves a lot of critical time and also makes the job for the individual much, much easier, right? Because they don't have to have like this cold start where they see a problem, but then they have no idea where to go next, right? What hypothesis to test. Resolve does all of that work on your behalf and gives you an answer and a resolution, right? So both, makes the job a lot easier, but also helps us prevent issues. Like some of our bigger customers measure that the Resolve improves the time it takes to remediate an issue 4 or 5 times, which is huge. It's a huge improvement. It's something like we've never seen before with tools.
Spiros, how many people work in Resolve AI?
So we have the whole company is about 130 people, and more than 120 are in the office in San Francisco. So basically, we're in the office every day, 5 days a week, oftentimes 6 days a week now. And all of our engineering is here. Most of our go-to-market team is here, but now we also have an office in New York.
Okay.
And a handful of people who work remotely.
So we have 2 offices, one in San Francisco and one in New York, right?
Correct.
Some people work remotely.
We only have like a handful of people who are in go-to-market that work remotely. All of engineering is in San Francisco in the office every day.
I understood.
That was a very intentional decision at the beginning, right? We wanted to be in the office.
Sure. How do you hiring people?
I think we a few things, right? We care deeply about people who want to be at the startup, who can deal, let's say, with the intensity of AI, who are obviously smart. And then we have a few rounds of interviews that we have nailed by now. And we rely a lot also on references and, our prior experience and, talking to people who have maybe worked with the candidates. I think the market we're in is very, very big. And Resolve is like the company that essentially has created this AI, SRE production market, right? So we are hiring both in software engineering infrastructure. We're hiring in, model post-training. And we're hiring very aggressively in go-to-market as well, right? So if, people want to come and work here, we welcome, interest.
Coinbase, DoorDash, Salesforce, 3 of the most demanding engineering organizations on the planet, and you've landed all of them in just 16 months. What is that resonates so strongly with these enterprises? So
first of all, what I'm the proudest about in building Resolve is, that we created, let's say, this AI system that, the most advanced, right, the most sophisticated engineering teams in the world trust us, right? And these are folks who are, up to speed with technology, right? Know what's possible, right? And they chose to work with Resolve because it believes it's the best tool in the world for this problem, right? They have both the skills and the capital and the access to use the best tool in the world, right? And they determine that Resolve is that tool and they trust us. So to me, that's the most important thing, right? Like when you're building a company, what matters at the end of the day is do people trust you, right? Does it have impact in the real world? And that's exactly what we see with the customers we have. And of course, all of them now use us kind of as a counterpart, let's say, to their coding agents to actually now deliver software reliably, right, when it goes to production. And that's what Resolve is all about.
That's fantastic. One of your clients cut incident investigation time by 72%. That's not a small improvement. That's transformational. Can you take me through how that actually happens? What is the Resolve doing under the hood that leads to a result like that?
Yeah, so like I said, right, like obviously, trying to automate, dealing with production problems, software problems, has always been a desire, right? But these systems have so much complexity, so many corner cases, that, the technologies we had before were impossible to work, right? The difference with Resolve and agents is that agents have the ability to use tools like humans, and they can use the tools we have in place today, right, without us having to change anything. They have the ability to essentially generalize from knowledge they have already. So meaning when a new problem happens, agents can effectively deal with it, right? They don't have to know exactly a handbook, right? So then what has happened in these organizations is that as they started using Resolve, right, and putting it in place and giving it enough context, the same context that humans have and the same tools that humans have, Resolve is able to work with humans and move at a much faster pace, right? So in these large systems, when, let's say, I'm dealing with an incident, let's say, there are probably thousands of things that can go wrong, right? So what Resolve does, it very, very quickly can essentially reason through all the problems, eliminate possibilities, and get you to one or two, or the actual problem very, very quickly, right? So all that all that toil, let's say, work that humans had to do, Resolve does a lot faster and gets them to an answer a lot faster, leading to essentially a huge improvement in MTTR, basically.
Thank you. So you just closed 125 million Series A at 1 billion valuation. That's a significant vote of confidence from Lightspeed and Greylock. Walk me through how you thinking about deploying that capital. Where does Resolve go from here?
Yes, it is indeed a huge vote of confidence. I'm very happy and proud for the work the team has managed to achieve to get to this, right? But I would say also, raising capital is not the destination, right? It is an important tool, and a very important tool in AI, especially, right? But it doesn't make you successful. What makes you successful is building, a product that people want to use. It has a lot of impact, and it solves problems that are important to the world. So I do think that the problem we're solving is very important. I think technology is, AI is probably the biggest advancement we've seen in technology, and probably the impact to our lives in, at least in my generation. And I think the problem Resolve solves within that is very, very important, right? Like essentially building software faster, but also now maintaining and running it faster, right? Being able to move at the same velocity across the entire life cycle of software is very, very important for us to develop more technology. And in that sense, what Resolve is going to do now, right? I think we're the leader in this AI for production market, as we call it. And what we intend to do with this money is invest in two areas. One is that we see ourselves as a full stack company, as we call it, right? We believe that to do this well, Resolve has to deliver agents, it has to have enough data, let's say, for the domain, and it has to actually have to improve models beyond, let's say, what's possible with frontier models, right? So a lot of investment goes into R&D, into product expansion and model development, let's call it, right? And the other part is we want to invest in go-to-market and customer success. We see that effectively the problem we're solving is present in anybody who delivers their business software, and we see a lot of demand, a lot more than we can actually satisfy today. So we want to invest heavily in our go-to-market and customer success more broadly, right? So that more people can use Resolve.
Makes sense. Thank you. There is a lot of noise in AI space right now. Dozens of startups claiming they do AI ops. What's your answer when someone asks why Resolve?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, AI is very disruptive, right? So it opens up a lot of markets that maybe was not possible to go build a startup in, right? Because they were dominated by existing players that had presence everywhere. So I think it's a great thing for innovation and startups. And on one hand, you can say there is a lot of noise. On the other hand, you can say there is a lot of innovation. And to me, we will win as a company because we're going to build the best product, right? The most innovative product. And I think that's the only way, right? There's no other way to win. Now, the domain we're applying, the domain is in, right? Let's say production operations and, incidents and production issues. It's a very hard domain because you're dealing with, essentially, for this to work, you have to have probably usually many people that come together, software developers, infrastructure engineers, platform engineers, each one of them having unique knowledge. Then you have many, many, many tools that are, present in these systems, right? From source code to monitoring and observability tools to infrastructure. And then production is never documented, right? Unlike source code, where maybe a model has the full context, production documentation is spread out across tools, human minds, and documents that are oftentimes wrong even, right? So it's a very difficult problem. So to me, why Resolve is because Resolve has built this multi-agent system that is very, very effective in actually internalizing all this knowledge that humans have, in actually being able to use the tools that are in place very, very precisely, as well as a human or better. And then it has this very powerful, let's say, knowledge and memory system that can internalize the context, right? Become essentially the system of record for the documentation for the production system. So over time, it becomes as effective as humans, and possibly even more effective, right? Because it can move at fire velocity, right? So we believe essentially we have the best team, and the proof point of that is our technology, right? And the proof of our technology is the customers that we have that trust us in production, right? So I think these are the reasons why somebody should trust us, right? And in practice, I guess the best way to know is to try Resolve, right? Or to try other alternatives in AI, because at the end of the day, it's very easy to build a demo, but it's so much harder to build a system to deploy to production with AI.
Right. You said AI will change software engineering more in the next 12 months than it did in the last 5 years. Do you think the role of SRE and DevOps engineer fundamentally changed or disappears?
I do think it changes. I think that what we have seen happening, actually, I would say software engineering is changing in the next 12 months, or in the 12 months prior, in the next 12 months, more than it changed probably since programming languages were invented. I think that essentially in development we have moved a level above in abstraction, right? Essentially, source code is something that models are going to be dealing with primarily, right? And agents, and we're going to be essentially overseeing these agents. That has happened, and I think by the end of this year, it's probably going to be, 100% of the source code is going to be generated for many organizations, including ourselves. But now, I don't think we have the operational readiness for that to happen, especially for large-scale applications. To your earlier statistic, today, engineers spend most of the time dealing with production than developing new features. And now we made the development of new features maybe 5-10 times faster. So what has to happen now for software engineers and SREs? We need to give them equivalent tools, equally good tools, to make actually the operational readiness much better, right? So we need to become much better in dealing with production. And the only way to do that is with agents that do the equivalent here that they do in coding, so that we can move at the same pace, right? But yeah, the job is changing, right? Like, you have to embrace tools, you have to embrace AI to be able to be effective.
Fair enough, thank you. Last question, 3 years from now, where is Resolve AI and what does the industry look like? What does that world look like to you?
Yeah, so 3 years is a very long time, right? But I'll tell you, when we launched the company, like 15 months ago, we set an ambitious goal that, we said like Resolve should be able to, auto-resolve, let's say, 80% of the problems that happen in production. I would say, we didn't have a time horizon for that, right? But that was our ambitious goal. If you ask me today, I think we're probably, within years from that happening, right? I think by the end of this year, Resolve should be able to actually, deal on its own without even a human in the loop with the majority of issues, right? We might get to this 80% I described. So essentially, we're going to get to a point maybe in a year from now where Resolve is going to be able to be as effective as an experienced, let's say, software engineer, but with a lot more context across the entire system. If you play it out another year, I think where we're headed is, I think AI is going to start having the ability to deal with, problems or, to operate, beyond the abilities of an individual software engineer, right? Maybe you're going to have a team of agents working together to essentially look more like an entire team or organization, right? So that will allow us to move at a much faster pace than we can move today, right? Because maybe in the next 12 months, we manage to catch up the human level, abilities, right? But I think a year out or 2 years more out, I think, agents are going to be essentially working with each other, and, making decisions and moving faster than what the pace of humans can move with, right, in technology. And I think that's very desirable for the world, because I think problems that are very expensive today are going to become cheaper. Problems that were not possible before are going to be solved more easily. I mean, and I'd see agents not just like essentially developing and running software. I see them actually doing research and improving even like, fundamentals in technology.
Spiros, this has been fantastic. Resolve AI is clearly one of the most exciting companies in the space right now, and it's easy to see why the best investors backed you. Thank you so much for your time and for having us here. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. Thanks a lot for your questions.